Hey you guys, I did a video last night and I tried to upload it, but I did it off of this phone and I've found that when I do it off my non-phone that doesn't have service, it spins and spins and spins. And it was in the middle of the night and it's again late, and so I don't know if it'll do that again, but I'm gonna go ahead and upload it, but I might in some things I sound harsh, but I don't mean it that way, okay? And then other thing, I sounded like I was talking about the channels I watch when I was not. I'm talking about the channels I used to watch that are kind of conspiratorial. They're always watching the news and thinking, it's end times. They're not necessarily date setters, but they just are always trying to make things fit. And now that Trump is working on some kind of peace agreement thing, I'm sure what I meant was I'm sure they're going ape shit, they're going nuts. So about that, saying, oh, look, Daniel 9, or, So um, the video that I did last night, I'm going to upload it again. I'm going to try, and that'll explain what I'm talking about right now, but I want to share some more things with you about what I was talking about last night. So I guess there's so many things that I wonder about, like correlating, okay, because Genesis to the end of the book, we must realize that Genesis basically has probably every book of the Bible in it, is what I'm thinking. So listen to this. I'm going to share from like what I was talking about last night. Okay. It says Genesis 3:16, unto the woman he said, unto Israel he says, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and thy conception. I'm not real. I know there's something in that. There is something in that, in her conception, okay? Because conception involves an egg and a seed. And okay, so I'm still okay. So then it okay, in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. You'll see my first video. Okay, so now let me show you. Oh, here, I got it right here. Isaiah 49:21. Because, see, everything I'm reading in Genesis, I find it in the Bible somewhere. So, well, when you kind of match things up. So, like, say, Isaiah 49, you've all probably read this, where and I think it's another chapter. This is when I Googled it that came up with 49, but I think it's in another chapter describing Israel. The prophet foretells restoration of Jerusalem. After enduring barrenness and exile, she is suddenly flooded with her returning children, causing her to ask, who bore me these and who raised these children? And then it goes on to explain who, okay? And it's not talking about the 10 tribes of Israel. It's talking about children, the Gentiles. Okay, so see, if you look at her, Eve, as Israel, is what I'm saying. So, and okay, in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. And they have been full of sorrow all the time. And I mentioned some of that in my first video, but like if I say the word hate, don't take me like literally. It's just, like Jacob have I loved, Esau have, just makes it was a little too harsh of a word, but it basically means getting on my nerves. Like, I hate this kind of thing. And when I talk about God mocking, he's not doing it out of cruelty. He's okay. So anyway, hopefully you won't get the wrong idea. I just probably over exaggerated. So, and then here, in sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and will have they ever. And thy desire. Now, let me give you the definition of desire. Okay. In relation to 316, a woman's urge to dominate her husband or a deep emotional sexual longing for him, which is an encounter. Okay, so dominate. So go back then to Genesis 3:16. And your desire, woman, Israel, will be to dominate God, her husband. Okay? And God will rule over you. Okay? Now here, Isaiah 49:21. No, Isaiah 54:5. For your maker is your husband. And Adam, like I was telling you in the first video, I briefly looked for that video by Pastor Alan Nolan. He wonderfully explains in a, I don't know which video, I forgot the topic even, but he's describing the two genealogies, and I touch on that in my first video, so that I'll share. Okay, so something about in there that the other genealogy says Adam. It goes all the way back to the very beginning, Adam, and the way Pastor Alan Nolan said it, or it's kind of like Adam is, and I've heard this anyway. Adam is like a Christophany or like God, sort of. That's why Satan was saying, you'll be like gods. Like Satan is always wanting to be like God. And so Satan's trying to entice them to be wicked like he is and be a God. Or, okay. So here, Isaiah 54:5, for your maker is your husband. The Lord of hosts is his name, and the Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer, the God of the whole earth. He is called. Okay, so he's the husband. Okay. Okay. That was basically okay. And then I was just going to kind of read to you some of the things. For example, like I went over some things in my first video, but like, oh darn, well, now I've got, like it talks about, okay, because I know something's got to be in this verse, and I will put enmity between thee, Israel. Okay, Pops. And I will put enmity between you, Satan, not Israel. Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between you, Satan, and Israel, the woman, and between your seed, Satan, and her seed, Israel. Because see, in Revelation, you guys, the woman is Israel. She's giving birth. She's travailing. I go over this in my first video a little bit, but I'm showing it to you right here. So it says, and between thy seed, Satan, and Israel's seed, which is Jesus, which is God's seed in Israel, which gave birth to Jesus. Okay, you can think about this a little more. I'm going over it kind of quickly because my dog is agitated or impatient right now. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel, Jesus' heel. So, like I said, this stuff is packed in here. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow, Israel, and thy conception. There's probably something in that. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. That's true. And your desire will be to your husband. Okay, so I read you this. And then to Adam is kind of like an image of God or a Christophany. And maybe something is in this, okay? So because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, in other words, You listened to your wife instead of God. You shouldn't be listening to anyone but me. And has eaten. And she, like I said in the first video, she was saying, here, I'm giving, like, Jesus says, I give you water, I give you bread. And even mentions in bread in here with Adam. Bread, right? Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife and has eaten of the tree. And why did Satan only offer? He didn't. Okay, I said that in my. Okay, and then in this other verse, he's saying, in the midst of the garden, he has put the tree. And see, as the verse reads, it could mean that it's one tree, but he's giving it two names, but he proves that it is not. It is two trees, two separate trees. Because he says, let's get them out of the garden before they figure out, and then they got to eat, and then they're going to try to eat the tree of life, because Satan said, you shall not surely die. So see, now they want to go hurry up and eat the tree of life. But anyway, there's so many verses that I was saying in my first video that there's lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff in each word, almost like well, like that conception verse. And I still haven't thought about what I had kind of thought about with this conception and the seed and the sorrow and because we know that, okay, so yeah, and like Revelation, Israel is the woman, she's travailing, giving in birth. The child is not Jesus, it might be the church, which Israel gives birth to the church basically because she gave birth to Jesus, and all the she's begetting Gentiles, because I just read it to you in Isaiah like 49 or 54. So, but to Adam, of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. I was explaining that in the first video. For your sake, and your sake alone, I am punishing you, so that you will not die eternally, so that you will have eternal life, Israel, and all humanity. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of your life. The ground is cursed, and the ground is our bread and butter. It's our life. And by the way, like the Seventh-day Adventists, they don't want to believe in eating meat because of what this says in Genesis. But clearly, all of the priests, you can Google what they ate. I think it's like the shoulder and the thigh. The fat was usually burned as the offering to God, but they ate meat. And then was it Samuel was raised by that priest? Remember, she cried, she wanted a child. She says, if you give me a child, I'll dedicate him to you, I'll give him to the temple. So that was Samuel, the prophet Samuel. And Samuel was raised by the priest. And so that priest, I forget his name, he had two sons, and they were wicked. And that priest got cursed for not putting his two sons in check. And those two sons would always overrun the priests while they were cooking the meat. It was their meat because the people fed the priests. This is why you had to tithe. You have to take care of the church. Anyway, they all ate meat, and so did the other Israelites sometimes, because if you read about it, some of that meat, I think, was given back to the people that gave the sacrifice, or maybe I'm confused, but I don't remember. But all I know is that the priests ate meat, you guys. They ate bread, wine, and meat, oil, all that. Those were the tithes. So we can eat meat. And just because in Genesis they didn't, and then things changed, doesn't mean that, because of course in the New Testament God said, all these things are, why are you calling them unclean? But, the Seventh-day Adventists might have a reason for that verse, like why um, they still don't want to eat meat. Um, but yes, there are, um, um, but I guess I won't go into too much because so in the sweat of I was just going to try to find a verse where I was saying, so like the conception part is very intriguing. I think there's something in that. And then, um, like, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground. And then even Cain, I think he said something about the ground will not bear fruit for you or something. And it was already cursed, first of all, so Cain really had it bad. He says, in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread. Jesus is the bread of life. So maybe it's the first mention of Jesus right there, but no, the first mention of Jesus is like 3:16 probably. So is Israel, maybe if they're Adam, I don't know who Adam would be, except for I don't think it's God, because he's going to be doing all this hard by the sweat of his brow, thorns also and thistles. See, when Jesus talks about the parable of the seeds and he says some fall upon thorns, I mean, with everything in here, in the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Yes, and Adam called his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living things, meaning she's the first woman ever to see all of creation. So yeah, I guess that was all I wanted to clarify about my first video. And yes, here's this: sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be Satan's desire, meaning unto you, meaning you. Okay, unto you, Cain, shall be Satan's desire. So in other words, whatever Satan wants, that's what Cain is going to want. And thou shalt rule over him. Okay, wait. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted. And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. First time sin is mentioned, I think. And unto you, Cain, shall be Satan's desire. Satan wants to rule over Cain, and Cain is going to be okay with that. And thou shalt rule over him. There's no question mark, it's a period. And Cain talked with Abel. So, yeah. And I go over this a little bit in my first video, how Cain was not like Adam and Eve. When that Adam and Eve was the first confession. And Cain, look at over here, he doesn't confess jack shit. When they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel's brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I don't know. See, that's not very confessing. Adam and Eve confessed right away, where art thou? And they said, we're hidden. We hid. Okay? Cain is hiding. Plain. Meaning he's hiding his sin. He's hiding his confession. He's not going to confess it. But Adam and Eve, they confessed it. They said, we're hiding. Okay? Cain says, screw that. I ain't going to confess nothing. I'm not going to confess. I'm hiding. I'm hiding my sin. All right. Anyway, if you read Genesis like one day and the beginning, and you go put it down throughout the day, and you go reread what you just read, you're going to probably see something different every time. And it should also remind you of other verses in the Bible, like Isaiah, probably Jeremiah, all of them. All of them. I bet everything in Genesis tells not only the whole story of Genesis, but it probably tells just, it's all in Genesis in a allegory, if you want to call it like that. Anyway, okay. So I go over in my first video. Maybe it's scary to you. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm way off base. Maybe I'm, meaning, but like I said, it just dawned on me. And I can only imagine what those other channels are talking about right now. The ones that twist the news into all kinds of conspiracies, and they're always saying, oh, that is the sign, when it's not. They keep just trying to make it fit. And then now this has come along, and they're, maybe it is the sign, maybe it's not. But you'll see what I mean if you watch the video. And hopefully that's everything I was going to say. And okay, well, God bless you guys. And I'm praying for everybody. And yeah, I guess that's about all. Okay, love you.